Joining us now, Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Iran Program Senior Director and Senior Fellow, Behnam Ben Taleblu. Thank you very much for coming in, Behnam. You know, after this tragic loss, I mean, that woman soldier was only 19 years old. There seems to be less support for getting more involved in Iran right now. I'm just wondering, you know, when you thought a week ago about the possibility of going after Karg Island and some more strategic strikes, does that seem further away than it was before this strike last night?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you both. Listen, if anything, the one way to live up to the legacy of their service is to hold those who pulled the trigger against them accountable. And backing out now, ultimately looking to keep the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism, which, by the way, has a fatwa on the president's head, in power, in my view, is not the way to honor their legacy, is not the way to honor their service, and is also not the way to defend the thousands of troops that we have in the region that continue to live there alongside our Arab partners and Israel, by the way, that is within drone range and missile range of the Islamic Republic. I mean, make no mistake, we are in the middle of a shooting war. It's going to be one that goes up and one that goes down. It's going to be one with victories and going to be one with defeats, but it's about the political resolve of the White House and this administration in particular to be able to see this thing through, because the Islamic Republic knows it will survive once Donald Trump leaves office. There's a gigantic question mark, however, of if it can actually get along to 2029.
It was about a month before Lindsey Graham passed away that he was making his rounds on the Sunday shows. And it was about the time of the Memorandum of Understanding. And he said that, you know, he appreciates the president's efforts on diplomacy, but ultimately he thought that it would fail. And I remember agreeing with him at that time. And here we are, because the Iranians show us time and time again who they are, what their motives are, and they look at the world in a completely different way. So in my view, the president's got really one option that he promised the American people, which was to finish the job and not drag this on longer than it needs to go on, which I think is what these negotiations would do. I think he's been more than patient, but I'm curious what you think.
I think you hit the nail right on the head there. I mean, there's a world of difference between Iranians, the people, and Iran, the state, versus the regime of the Islamic Republic of Iran. In Tehran today, you have the most pro-American population in the heartland of the Muslim Middle East, but you have the most anti-American regime in that part of the world. And this is fundamentally something that U.S. policy has suffered from for 47 years, how to get the right balance between supporting the people and pushing back on the state. And you hit the nail right on the head there when it comes to actually finishing the job. You know, this is not charity, this is not missionary work, this is doing well by America first and American strategies and American values to be able to push back on a regime like this that targets its Arab neighbors, that targets energy infrastructure, that targets U.S. forces in the region, and is trying to hold the world hostage in multiple places. I mean, just look at the Strait of Hormuz right now. The president showed that he was willing to dismantle part of the Iran sanctions architecture just to negotiate in good faith with this regime. And what did it do? It started to fire on vessels again in the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz. And that's why I believe fundamentally there is no way out but through. It is the Islamic Republic that is pushing Trump to be more commander-in-chief than deal-maker-in-chief.
Behnam, we only have about 40 seconds, but is our intel from Iran still intact? That is, are we still getting really good intel to know where to target these strikes so they don't hit civilian centers?
Well, it depends a great deal on what we do want to target. The president seems to want to go after coastal defenses to potentially clear up either, southern Iran or the islands around there for a renewal of Operation Freedom. That's what I think, the president's strikes are trying to do. But one way you actually minimize that is by not going after civilian infrastructure, but by going after the political leadership, the people making the decisions, and to make them worry that they will not be able to have their orders cascade down through what's left of the regime's security services. So holding the political leadership accountable rather than infrastructure that folks use is one way to minimize those damages for sure.
All right. Thank you so much.
Ben Taleblu, we appreciate you coming in. Thanks very much.